Ashtavakragita, chapter 2, verse 24. In me, the limitless ocean. When the wind subsides and the mind becomes quiet, unfortunately, for the trader in the form of the individual person, the ship of the conceptualized universe sinks. In the previous verse, the sage explained in detail on how our mind is a kind of wind which is producing waves which appears like the happenings in the world, while the consciousness is a peaceful ocean. Mind is the wind. Mind is creating the play on this consciousness. In case you would like to listen to the previous verses, I have added the playlist link in the description where you can find all the verses. This verse is in continuation to the previous verse, that is chapter 2 verse 23. And in here the sage is talking about a trader. This trader the sage is referring to is we ourselves who are living in this world and being caught in the imaginations of this world. What does the trader do? They go from one place to another using the ship to do some business. Right? That's the metaphor the sage is using here. Let's understand this. We have understood in the previous verse that the thoughts, emotions, desires, all of these are kinds of waves that are being created by the mind, and we also saw why the sage was referring the mind to the wind. Let's see how this is connected to trader. The trader would want the wind to move his ship for his business. If there is no wind, there are no waves. And if there are no waves, then there is no movement of the ship. And if there is no movement of the ship, then there is no business. And if there is no business, then the desires of the trader is not satisfied. So, the source of all these is desires and selfishness. From this, we can see that the world is created by our desires and selfishness. We saw in the previous verse on the enquiry which would give us clarity on this. That is, to check for whom is this world for? In this limitless ocean, which is me, when the wind subsides, meaning when the mind becomes quiet, then unfortunately for the trader who is in the form of the individual person, for him the ship of conceptualized universe sinks. These waves are just different subjects of the world. And if we observe carefully, the world for us is something that we ourselves would have created according to our desires. Let's see this with a simple example. We definitely know there are many things that would be happening in this huge world. But we would know the things that we are interested in, that our ego is interested in. This is the reason we would not know what is happening in every corner of the world. And every individual would see this world very differently. We saw in the previous verse on how the waves are false, and if the waves are false, then the ship also is false. Here, the sage is helping us see that the waves are like the whole world. But as an individual, what are we interested in? We are interested in only small parts of the world. Small parts of the world, according to our ego, is what we pick. This is exactly like a ship, what the sage is referring to. And the mind is like a wind which is creating these waves to keep running this ship. We need to link all this to see what the sage is exactly saying. He is talking about these waves, which is created by the mind, right? The mind acting like a wind. And now the trader also is in the picture, right? We need to link all of them. If you just pause for a moment and see, we are also doing some kind of a trade in this world. We are doing a transaction with this world, right? We need to check, we need to relate. The sage is saying when the mind stops, the waves are gone and the ship is also gone. The trader is not aware of the consciousness, and he has been thinking that he is just a trader, and all he was doing was to just fulfill his desires. And since he thinks he's just a trader, he had to run the ship. And for the ship to move, the waves is needed. And the waves has been created. This is exactly what's happening with our lives. We might be having this question in our mind. If it's so simple, why does this world seem so big? And if consciousness is the only truth, then why are there so many varieties to distract us? This is because our desires are so huge. If the world is small, then we are liberated, right? We will figure out what is there in this small world, and we will know that there is nothing special in this world. And we will know that the world cannot provide what is truly needed. And once this reality is known, we are liberated. But we will keep this world as is because we want our desires to be alive. We want these unsatisfiable desires to remain alive. See how beautifully the sage is giving these examples. He has given the example of a ship. Why is that? Because he wants us to see the ocean. Only in the ocean, ship can move. It can't move in the small rivers. Right? We need to relate this and see where is the ship? And how many ships have we created in our lives? Take a pause and look at all of these. If the faults of one wave is experienced, then it would not be necessary for us to play around with many other waves. It's only because our desires are so big that we keep playing around this. As the desire strengthens, we imagine ourselves being away from the truth. And desires resist in getting closer to the truth. Many times we might have come across these scenarios where we know it's not something that I wanted to do, but still I did it. I'm such an idiot. And we get into a loop of thoughts on why I did it, how it happened, and so on. We need not have to think so much. The reality why this happens is because of our desires. The desires can be satisfied only when our intelligence is blunt. I have let the intelligence to be captivated by desires. And when the sage is talking about desires and the intelligence, he is not talking about the intelligence towards maths or science. It's just that intelligence to walk the path of the truth. That intelligence, that pure intelligence, that innocence, which is alive in all of us to live the truth. And there is no problem with the intelligence. It's just the master that has been chosen for this intelligence is wrong. This is the effort that we will have to put in. We always need to choose truth as the master of this intelligence. This is the indication the sage is hinting us that one who is working to fulfill their desires, see what has happened to your intelligence. Just pause and look into it. This is quite simple. The mind might resist looking at this, but let's put some effort to look into it. Check if the whole energy is spent to keep the trade going on. Check if our energy is spent to keep the ship moving. Check how many ships are running in our lives. And why do we need this wind and waves? Let's get rid of them if it's not helping in getting closer to the truth. This trade has been happening from the time we have taken birth. There is nothing special in this. These desires are not fulfilling, and we know this is how it is. Let's get closer to these desires and see if this is going to give us the real joy. It's just this understanding of what's happening and for who it's happening will help us to get out of this trap of suffering. If the ship is sinking, it's wonderful. Let it sink. If the ship, which was never existing, is sinking, no need to worry about it. The mind might create games. Let's not get caught with it.